Hi everybody, welcome to Cook to Live, and I'm Dr. Furman, and I'm so happy to share with you my secrets to healthy cooking, how to take the immunity solution and put it into your kitchen, into action with food preparation techniques. Today I'm going to show you how to make delicious soups, main dishes, and fantastic desserts. So let's get started. First thing I want to do is show you how to prepare some foods that I love to eat and use in my recipes all the time, like artichokes, broccoli, leek, carrots, how to make these things. So let's start with an artichoke, because artichokes are great even to eat them just even plain. Let me show you how I make them, how I prep them. First is I just take a few of these bottom leaves off the artichoke, and I'll cut the very bottom of the stem off. I don't cut the whole stem off because I find the stem is delicious, but just the bottom part that turned brown. And if there's some defects in the stem, you can just cut a few away. So take a smaller knife to make it look clean, so the stem is clean. Okay, so there's a pretty clean stem, which we're going to eat the whole stem. And now I'm going to prep the artichoke. Because artichokes take a long time to cook, and the outside cooks quicker than the inside, I'm going to cut the whole artichoke in half. So I'm going to cut right through the stem, right through the artichoke, starting right from the stem, cutting through the stem and then right through the entire artichoke to make the artichoke flip open so you can see the center of the artichoke, including the choke. Now notice you have this fuzzy stuff that has to come out because that's not good to eat. And the best part to take it out is right now before you cook it. So take a small knife with a sharp point, put it right along that lip where the bottom of the edible choke meets the fuzz. I'm going to cut that deeper than you think you need to go, twisting the knife to keep it right along that edge. And then you can take these small purple, almost plastic-like leaves right out when the choke comes out with that part you just cut. Let me cut that a little bit more. It's not coming. It should come out pretty easily. There we go. So I'm going to take that whole center choke out. There, it came out pretty easily. Wipe that fuzz away. So that's ready to be washed and then put in my pot. Let me do one more, show you one more. Take the sharp knife again, cut a little deeper in so I can feel this time I'm actually hitting a little bit of the leaves on the other side, so I can reach back and remove the whole triangular piece, the non-edible piece, out of that artichoke. See, now the rest is edible. Now we're going to steam these artichokes. They're ready for steaming. I'm going to put them in my pot, and then once they get steamed, they'll steam for 18 minutes. So once you get the water boiling, put them in your steamer, steam it for 18 minutes. You'll know they're ready then because you'll take a tongs and you'll pull out one of these leaves. And notice when I lift up the artichoke, the leaf stays on there. But when it's cooked, the leaf will pull off the artichoke once it's cooked. That's how you know it's done. Now, when it's cooked, this whole part of the artichoke, this centerpiece, all becomes edible. All this part is chewable. You can eat almost halfway right up to the top of the leaf there. And this whole bottom stem part, let me show you this part. We pull this back off the choke, which would come off very easily if it was cooked. I mean, it's hard to come off now because it's not cooked. But this whole base of the artichoke, with the center of the fuzz removed, is all edible and delicious. And these center leaves, you eat this by putting them in your mouth and scraping the inner portion of the leaf, or you can use a butter knife. Use a butter knife or a dull knife and hold it on the top of the leaf and run it and pull the meat right off the artichoke. And you can throw the inedible part away. So that's how you prepare an artichoke. Makes it so it prepares quickly and it cooks evenly throughout the choke because you cut it in half. So you don't have the outside part getting done while the inside part is still hard. By cutting it in half, it cooks quickly within 18 minutes, and the whole choke cooks in a uniform manner. All right, let me take those and move them aside now. Okay, now how to prepare broccoli. Likewise, broccoli, you want to steam it for a shorter period of time. It cooks quicker, and the top part cooks even faster than the stem does. So what we do is we thin the stem down so the whole broccoli cooks evenly. You don't have to overcook it to get the stem cooked. So like the choke, I'm going to cut just the very bottom lip off the stem off. Then I'm going to cut it right through the center of the stem, exposing, don't go all the way through, and then splitting the broccoli in two. And I can do it again. I can split the broccoli in quarters by cutting through the stem almost up to the top of the broccoli, the top of the head, and then splitting it. So here I took my head of broccoli and split into 4 quarters. That way, when the small part at the top is cooked, the stem will be soft as well. And the broccoli, we're just going to steam, once the pot is boiling, we're just going to steam for 10 minutes not 18 minutes like the artichoke, and you're going to have the broccoli done just perfect. Another thing we do with broccoli is you can just take a little bit of olive oil, not on the broccoli, just on your hands, just a little bit on your hands, and you can kind of wipe down the broccoli once it's washed so it cooks, makes a nice shine on the broccoli, really, so it's almost beautiful to serve at a party and gives it a great flavor. And you can also put your crushed garlic in the pot and make a delicious broccoli that tastes fantastic that can be served at any fancy affair. So see how easy and quick it was to prepare that broccoli. Ready to be put in your steamer. And in a steamer, it's usually a pot that sits above water, and put enough water in there so it doesn't burn out. And watch these, when you steam vegetables, watch them closely. We don't want to over-steam vegetables so you take all the nutrients out and turn the water green. Keep an eye on it and even have to open the pot and taste it. You want these vegetables a little bit on the hard side, what they call al dente, a little bit so they're not mushy. So you want to really stop them in time. Okay, let's take the broccoli, move that to the side, and let me show you how to open a coconut. Now when you pick a coconut, you want a nice heavy coconut. Compare it in the store. Smell it. Make sure it smells fresh. There's no kind of fungi type odor. Shake it, make sure it's heavy. And now I'm going to open the kitchen. The way I like to open it is, first thing I do is I'll take a hammer and a screwdriver, which I've cleaned in advance, this clean screwdriver, and I'm going to open a couple of holes at the top of the coconut right there. So I'm going to put the screwdriver in and kind of like work the edge in, twisting it. You see I'm twisting it in there to see if I can get it started and get some of that. And usually if you twist it, you could find one of the three holes at the top of the coconut is softer than the other ones. So you don't even have to use the hammer to get it in. You could probably just twist it right in to make a hole. Once you twist it in, you can use it to pry down, and you can crack a little bit of the shell away from the coconut. If you're having trouble getting it in or finding a hole, you can give it a light tap with a hammer to get it in. But in most cases, you don't even need to. It goes right in. Now we've made that, so I'm going to take this screwdriver and remove some of that hole. So I made a hole in the coconut. You see I made a nice hole in the coconut? I'm not going to pour it out yet. I'm going to make a second hole, because it'll pour easier if air can get in one hole. It'll pour easier if I make that second hole in there. So now I have two holes in the coconut. I'm going to take my glass now, and I'm going to have some delicious coconut milk. Now I'm going to let the coconut just sit right upside down so it pours out. With the two holes, it'll come out of there. Coconut tastes delicious, and the milk you can use in recipes, and my kids love to drink it. I like it too. And coconut has all those rich minerals in the water. Feels great after a great workout. Now when you take your first taste of coconut milk, just take just a little bit, because sometimes the coconut's not fresh, and you'll know the coconut's not good, but you have to take a little bit to make sure it's good coconut milk. I'm going to test it now. No, just kidding. It's actually good. Okay, that's a good coconut. Now we have the rest of the coconut. Now it's light. The milk's out of it. So I'm going to take a dish towel and wrap a dish towel around the coconut. This is a magic trick. You see, watch. Imagine it's going to, see it's wrapped around there. You think a coconut's in there, don't you? Now watch. Take my hammer, give it a few smashes, crack the coconut through the dish towel, because that separates the meat from the shell without it going all over your kitchen. Open it up, of course, and voila, oh my goodness, it's not a good coconut. You can see how it worked. You can see how the shell was cracked off the coconut, but this is not a fresh coconut. It can't, because you can see it's a little bit, doesn't look right. It's not firm, but in any case, if it was a good coconut, that would be the way you would open it. Okay, let's move on to making some delicious soups, but even making the soup takes the right preparation of the food. For example, how to wash leeks, and leeks are great to make in a soup. So I'm going to make you my famous anti-cancer soup, which uses orange juice, cashews, mushrooms, kale, zucchini, and leeks. Now leeks are a real dirty food. They really look pretty dirty. So what we're going to do, I'm going to show you how to prep them and wash them, because the dirt can be in the center of the leek, and you got to expose that first. So I'm going to take the leek and cut the bottom part off, right? So here's a particular leek with a lot of dirt on it. I'm going to cut the bottom part off right where the root was. And now I'm going to cut about 1 inch of top off and throw that away too. on both sides. Prepare these 2 leeks. And now I'm going to take this leek and cut it right down the center, lengthwise through the leek, so I can open it up. I'm going to take a few of these outer leaves that don't look very good, and I'm going to put them over here too. I'm not going to utilize them. Now I have the leek part I want to utilize. I'll make it with 2 leeks. So here's the second leek that I prepared. I'm going to cut this one down the middle as well. And here's the thing with the leek, is if you look in the center, watch, I'm going to take it apart now. You see how there's dirt in the middle, down there in the middle of the leek? You have to, there's even dirt down. Sometimes when you unravel, get close to the bottom, you could still see some dirt. That's why you have to peel back each layer of the leek, just like an onion, separating every individual leaf. So you can wash in each individual leaf all the way down. So in this case, I'm going to cut it through the center. And I'm going to take my leeks now that I prepared, and I'm going to wash them in my pot. I'm going to wash them in the sink. And when I wash them, I'm going to make sure I scrub, especially the green, when the green part meets the yellow or white, right in this part here, where the green part meets the yellow or white right there, which starts to get lighter, is where a lot of dirt collects. So I'm going to take and make sure that all those leeks are individually washed. And now I have my washed and clean leeks ready to go right here. I'm not going to sit them here because there's still a lot of dirt on my cutting board. I'm going to put them in a dish. I'll put them right with my onions, which I prep for the dish, and we'll use them later. So I'm going to put them with my onions right there. We'll get to them later. Okay. Now we're going to start to make the soup. The first part of the soup, obviously, the first thing you do before you start the soup is get your water boiling, because it's always going to be, you're going to put beans in the soup, and beans take a long time to cook. So the very first thing we're going to do to make a soup is take a pot, fill it with water, and get it starting to cook. Actually, I have my beans here that have already been rinsed and washed. And if you'd like to make your soup cook a little bit faster, you could even soak the beans overnight in water. But in this case, I have my washed beans. I'm adding them into my pot. Those are the things. Oh, and I put, of course, in this soup, I'm using a cup of white beans and a cup of green split peas into the pot. Now I'm going to add my pitcher of water. In this case, I added a quart of water into the soup with the beans, and I'm going to start that cooking right away. Put it right there, cover it up, and get that cooking. Okay. My beans are starting to cook, and now I'm going to prepare the juice for the soup. And when I make a big pot of soup, I make a lot of soup at one time. I don't want to keep making a soup every night. I want to make once a week, make a big pot of soup, and we're going to use it the whole week. So I got my water and beans cooking, and now I'm going to make my base of the soup. Because I make a lot of soup at one time, I juice a whole 5-pound bag of carrots. And this is a 5-pound bag of carrots. It makes about 1.5 quarts of juice. In this case, what I did is I took these carrots. I didn't peel them, but I just cut the tops off. What I did is I cut the very top off the carrot, just the top off, and then I washed the carrots. I don't have to peel them because they're organic carrots. Organic carrots taste sweeter and are better in the soup when you juice them. And the reason we throw the pulp away is because it concentrates the sweetness in the soup and adds tremendous flavor to the soup. But if you use the pulp or just ground the carrots or blended them into the soup would not be as flavorful. So here are my carrots. If I was using inorganic carrots, then I would peel the carrots, because you would peel carrots that are not organic, because part of the time they treat the carrots, or the chemicals that they're using with the non-organic materials could stick to the skin. But in these cases, washing them is good enough. So I'm going to take my carrots and some celery. In this case, I'm going to juice the whole 5-pound bag of carrots in my juicer. So I'm going to turn my juicer on. Let it warm up for a minute. And I'm going to juice the whole 5-pound bag right through the juicer. Okay, in this case, quite noisy, but in this case, I didn't juice the whole 5 pounds, but if I was normally making the soup, I would. I would be juicing the whole 5 pounds. Here I juiced about half the bag, so I got half a quart of juice, and I'm going to add this juice right into my soup. Normally I would juice a little more, but now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the pulp from the carrots and I'm going to put it back in the juicer again. So I'm going to take the pulp and juice it one more time, so don't waste any of the carrots or the celery, because often the juicer doesn't extract every bit of liquid that was in the carrot pulp. So I'm going to make the carrot pulp into a nice baseball. I'll usually pour it out, put it into a bowl, and make it into 2 baseballs. Put it back on here again. Turn my juicer back on again. I'm going to put the pulp back through the juicer again. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so I made some extra juice not to have wasted the pulp. Putting that in my soup too. So while that's cooking, I'm going to let that continue to cook and simmer. The next segment is I'm going to get back with take my Vitamix back, or my powerful blender, get that set up, and I'm going to blend the onion and the kale and with a little bit of soup liquid. You know why? Because remember we talked about that myrosinase enzyme in green vegetables that activates or catalyzes the reaction to form the anti-cancer isothiocyanates. If we cook the kale, right here's the kale, if I cooked it, it would deactivate the enzyme. But once I blend it and release the enzyme, it'll form the beneficial compounds, and I want that to happen before I cook it or put it in the soup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my kale, that's washed of course, I can strip it, leave some of the in this case I'm going to strip it, and I'm going to put it in my Vitamix, and I'm going to add the leeks that I prepared earlier, because they're the onion family, and the onion family has that allanase enzyme that likewise, that it's better to blend it and cream it before we add it to the soup. If we cook the onion or cook the leeks, then it would deactivate the enzyme. We can't cook it and then blend it. We've got to blend it while it's raw and then cook it. So I'm going to throw my onions and leeks. I may have to do it with 2 separate Vitamix bowls, because can't fit everything I want to put in the soup into one bowl. So I'll do that in 2 separate Vitamix bowls. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a little of the soup liquid and ladle it out of the soup and put it in the Vitamix to help this spin better. So I'm going to ladle just a little of the liquid out and put a little of the liquid in the Vitamix. So there I'm ready to go. Make sure your top is clicked on tightly. And I'm going to flip on the Vitamix on low first. And then I'm going to use my plunger to plunge this down. Okay, I have everything blended there nicely in the Vitamix. Breathe in that aroma. Wow. You could smell the mixture, the onions, and all those beneficial chemicals we're forming right in your kitchen. You could smell all those powerful anti-cancer chemicals. And I'm going to pour this liquefied mixture of the onions and the kale right into the soup at this point. And of course, because I can't fit it all into one blender, I'm going to do another blender full with the remaining onions, and whatever remaining onions and leeks I had, I'm going to put into the back of the Vitamix and make a second run. Cut this a little smaller so it blends easier in the Vitamix. And then in this run, I'm going to add a secret ingredient of raw cashews that'll give it a creamy mouthfeel to the soup to blend that in as well. So in the second batch of kale and and leeks and onion. I'm going to throw my secret ingredient of a cup of raw cashews in there. And of course, I'm going to put a little more kale in there too. Stems and all, put it right in there. Ladle just a little bit of the liquid in there from the soup, back in there again. And whip up one more batch of the soup ingredients. Of course, this time I have the cashews in, so it's going to be even white and creamier. Here it goes. Okay. Now I'm going to add this, the remaining part, the remaining onions with the cashews all blended into my soup. And now I can take my Vitamix and I can clean that out too and move that away from the kitchen. So I'm going to let my soup continue to cook. I'm going to rinse out my Vitamix. And as I rinse it out, I'll rinse out the blender. And what I do next is I put my zucchini in. I usually put 4 to 6 nice zucchinis in the soup. So I'll take the zucchini and I'll cut the little tops off with a... I won't even bother cutting the bottoms off. These are rinsed off, washed zucchini. And I'll put the zucchini in whole. You could throw them in the Vitamix and have creamed them in, but I just throw them in whole because I'm going to mix them up later. I'll put about 5 zucchinis in. Zucchinis add a tremendous amount of liquid to the soup because they're a very high water content food and make a delicious gelatin-like feel and taste for the soup. So I'm putting them in next. Okay, then I'm going to add my mushrooms to the soup. And my mushrooms, of course, this is a mixed batch of mushrooms that have already been chopped, washed and chopped. Next, I'm going to add my spices and flavorings to the soup. In this case, I'm going to add a little bit of veggie zest or another type of no-salt vegetable flavoring blend. So I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of veggie zest and a teaspoon of Mrs. Dash, which does have pepper in it. I don't want the soup too peppery, so I'm just going to add about a teaspoon of Mrs. Dash in the soup. Okay, I'm going to mix that up a little bit to mix all those flavorings around. So because I put the zucchinis in the soup, now they're soft. I'm going to remove the cooked zucchinis and put them back in my that they're softened already now. And I'm going to put them in the Vitamix again. Just the zucchinis. They're easy to feel in the soup. And now I'm going to take a little of that soup liquid in with the zucchinis. So my mushrooms are lumpy and chunky in the soup. And I can add other things lumpy and chunky if I want. I can put a little carrots or parsnips lumpy and chunky. The beans give you that chunky and lumpy mouthfeel. But the zucchini and the kale and the onion family are going to be all creamed nicely into the soup, smooth and silky in the soup. See how easy those were to blend, especially once they cooked a little bit. Now I'm going to pour that in the soup. My soup is done. I can let it cook now that it took me about half hour, 45 minutes to prepare all that, to clean the kitchen. And now I'm going to let the soup cook for one more hour on a low flame. So the beans get really soft and all the flavors get integrated. I'm going to lower the flame now. Keep it covered. let the soup finish, and be ready to be served. What I do often, though, is I'll make the soup in an hour more of cooking. I'll shut the flame off completely and let it just sit there hot on the stove. We'll eat it for dinner that night, and then when the pot's getting a little cooler, at bedtime, I'll take the whole pot as is, just the whole giant pot of soup, and I'll put it in the refrigerator on a shelf, on a towel, so it can cool down overnight. And the next morning, I'll have the cold soup that I can ladle out and put it into like 8 to 10 different containers. I don't want to be working with the hot soup, and I don't want to especially be putting hot soup into plastic containers. But once it gets cold by the next morning, I could separate it into various containers that are all set to go to work with me. That my kids can take it, my wife can take it, I can take it. We can eat it all day, and we have it in a lot of different containers packed away in the back of the refrigerator for use the whole week. So here it is. It's done. We're ready to eat it. I put some in a bowl. It's called Dr. Furman's Anti-Cancer Soup. It's great tasting, and I love it. And you're going to love it too. And the reason why it's called the anti-cancer soup is it mixes together all those powerful anti-cancer compounds into one dish. It has the leeks, it has the onions, it has the alum family, right? It's got the cruciferous family with the green vegetables we add. It's got those carotenoids from juicing the carrots and the juiced vegetables. And it has a hefty dose of those mushrooms mixed in with some nuts and seeds to facilitate the absorption of all those anti-cancer phytochemicals. So I hope you're going to make this in your own home and enjoy it on a regular basis. Next, I'd like to show you how to put together a soup with a tomato base that's really quick and easy, so easy. And the first thing, we always start with water and beans, but I'm going to rush today, and I want to make the soup fast. So I'm going to put the cup of water in, just a regular cup of water. And instead of putting my dried beans in to cook, which I could, but I'm going to put a whole can of cannoli beans, so they're all cooked already. They're softened already. So to make my soup really fast. So I'm throwing the can of beans in to the pot with the cup of water. I'm going to put in 2 quarts of unsalted vegetable stock. So unsalted vegetable stock, it's already pre-made. Make a nice big soup pretty quickly. 1 more quart of vegetable stock. Now you could use, when it's in season, you get a lot of tomatoes, throw about 6 or 8 tomatoes in there. But right now I'm going to use a big jar of canned stewed tomatoes in there. There's a tomato-based soup right in there. And now I'm going to put in a cup of chopped dried tomatoes. Now here I just want to show you 2 types of dried tomatoes. Here's the types of dried tomatoes I want you to use. You notice how these tomatoes are dark, almost a reddish brown or reddish black color. That's because they have not been sulfured. And these are the healthiest kind to use because there's no ingredients. It's just plain tomato with nothing else in it. Now what you do is you put a little water in the bag. Take the bag, of course you take the top off, and you throw a little water in the bag, seal it up tight and keep it in your refrigerator with the water in it. It'll soften the tomatoes overnight. And when you ever go to use them, chop them in a salad, mix them in a dish or a vegetable dish. They'll be nice and soft, ready to be chopped up and added to your soup. So they get really soft and mushy, and they're delicious to eat straight out of the bag. But these are the tomatoes, these red kind, that you don't want to eat because they're soft and mushy already. They're bright red. That means they've been sulfured, treated with a preservative to keep them that red color. It's just like buying a dried apricot that's brown versus one that's orange. Don't use the orange dried apricots or the green raisins. Use the black raisins. Use the brown apricots. Use the blackish sun-dried tomatoes. They're actually dried tomatoes, not sun-dried. And so here I'm going to cut a cup of these up. These I did not soak, but normally I would have soaked them with water so they were softened first, and then I would chop them, and they would be chopped up like this. And I'm going to add a cup of the dried tomatoes to the soup as well. They'll soften up. I chopped up 2 large white onions here. I'm going to add the chopped red onions that have already been chopped into the soup. I'm going to put in, of course, a cup of the almond hemp milk. You could use soy milk or almond milk or hemp milk, but in this case, I'm using the homemade hemp almond milk I made earlier. I'm going to dump a cup of that in there too. I'm going to add my few cloves, 2 to 3 cloves of raw garlic that's been, of course, chopped up very small. And little spices. Here I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of ground pepper, black pepper. I'm going to use fresh oregano. So I got this nice fresh oregano. I'm going to strip some of the green fresh oregano leaves off the stem. And I'm going to chop up this fresh oregano. But with that, I'm going to take some rosemary and take some fresh rosemary off the stem too. So we're not going to use the stems of the rosemary and the fresh oregano, but it makes the soup really have a fantastic flavor to use these fresh herbs that are very healthy for you too. And I'm going to chop those up small. Use the rocking motion of the knife, and you can really chop them up nicely and quickly. Okay, so now we have the fresh herbs chopped up and added to the soup as well. And then I'm going to take some, I'm going to drizzle a little bit. Oh, I forgot to add a couple of cups, 2 or 3 cups of chopped collards into the soup. That's the green vegetables. I'm always putting the green cruciferous vegetables into the soup. Greens and beans are basis of almost every soup. So here's collard greens, what they look like whole. They're big green leaves. They have a lot of nutrition in them. It's a cruciferous vegetable. So I'd like you to, wash them, chop them. You can fold them up into small pieces. I want you to chop them up in small pieces. Chop them up as fine as you can. Go the other direction on that. So I want the collard greens chopped up nice and small added to the soup, because you know that when you chop them, you expose that surface area and you activate those compounds. Okay, and then we're going to add a little fig vinegar into the soup. 2 or 3 tablespoons. I'm going to pour it right from the bottle here, from my fig vinegar. Delicious flavoring to that soup. And I'm going to cover that soup and let it cook. Stir it up a little bit. Looks great. Okay, I'm let that cook. So while that's cooking, now I'm going to take some fresh basil. Take a little fresh basil, chop it up small. And if I'm serving the soup tonight, that's nice and hot, I'll put some finely chopped raw basil, sprinkle it right over the hot soup in individual plates, leaving it a little bit of. But since I'm going to keep this soup overnight, and a lot of it I'm not going to serve tonight, instead I'm going to put this fresh basil and mix it right into the soup. So a lot of delicious herbs in that soup. And last but not least, got to open this up. Because it's tomato-based soup, I'm going to give a couple of heaping tablespoons of tomato zest. That it's a tomato-based seasoning with no salt. Gives it a little spice and a little garlicky spice and tomato seasoning. 2 tablespoons of that. This soup is going to taste fantastic with all those fresh herbs and the tomato zest mixed in. Stir it up, and this soup can heat up. Cook for about 10-15 minutes, ready to go to serve in your meal. Look at this finished soup. Absolutely terrific. And I'm going to have some because it's simply delicious. With those fresh herbs and spices, this is good for you and tastes fantastic. It really is good. You've got to try this at home. Now I'd like to make a main dish with eggplant. This is called eggplant rotatini. But eggplant is a great food for low in calories, tastes delicious. I like to just take baked eggplant and scoop it out after it's baked at 350 for about 40 minutes. Put in some cinnamon, some onion, maybe a few currants or raisins. Makes a delicious dish. Makes delicious dips. You can make eggplant with hummus, make an eggplant hummus by blending it with sesame seeds and chickpeas, a little horseradish, a little scallion, a little roasted garlic. Makes a delicious dip or salad dressing. Make all types of dishes with eggplant. Here's a great dish, an eggplant roll-up or an eggplant rotatini, is I'll take eggplant, and I'm going to slice it, peeled it, of course. Now I'm going to slice it into strips. So I'm going to bake these strips in a pan so I can roll them up. So I'm going to take the strips. First I'm going to cut this eggplant into strips. Each strip in the eggplant is about a 1/4 inch thick. So I'm going to slice down this eggplant, a 1/4 inch thick strips. Okay, finished slicing up my eggplant. I'm going to take the eggplant and lay it out in a pan just to bake in a preheated oven at 350 for about 20 minutes or so till it gets soft and pliable till we can roll it into the rolls. So I'm going to put just a drop of olive oil on the pan, just a drop, spread it out of the pan just to make sure it doesn't stick. And now lay out my eggplant slices over this pan. Like dealing out a deck of cards. Here we go. Okay, putting that in my oven. Usually I'm going to make more than this when I really make it. I'm just making one pan full. I'll put it in the oven to cook for 20 minutes. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to saute the ingredients now. They're going to fit in the center of the eggplant roll-ups. So I'm going to take a hot pan, put it on the flame cooking. I'm going to throw a little bit of water in there. Before I put the water in, you can throw onions, scallions, all kinds of vegetables in to vary your eggplant roll-up. But in this case, put a little water in my pan, a hot pan. I'm going to throw in my garlic, celery, chopped peppers, chopped up carrots, and of course, a little chopped spinach. Stir that around a bit. And you can add a little more water. The more you put mushrooms in, zucchini, tomatoes, as you add vegetables that have their own liquid and their own water, you don't need to put the water in. But in this case, I'm using just spinach, celery, carrots, and garlic till it cooks down. That's good now, till the water cooks off a little bit. Just a few minutes. Okay, now I'm going to put this, shut the flame off, put this in my mixing bowl now. The lightly water sauteed vegetables. I'm going to put a couple of tablespoons of a tomato sauce or a pasta sauce in that, a couple of tablespoons of that in there. And mix that up. And that's going to be my filling for the eggplant roll-up. Oh, and I'm going to add a little bit for flavor, a little bit of a non-dairy cheese. Could be a soy cheese. In this case, I'm using a Daya cheese, which is made out of tapioca. Put just a little sprinkle of Daya cheese in there. And mix it up. And there I have my filling. All right, about 15 minutes went by. Let's check if the eggplant has softened in the oven by this time. I'm going to pull it out. Don't forget, my oven was preheated. Oh, it looks good. So to see, my eggplant now is flexible, bendable. See, it thinned down. Nice, really nice. Okay, so I'm going to take my eggplant out, spoon a little bit of the mixture in the center of each eggplant, and roll it up. Placing it back, the rolled up eggplant, placing it back on a cooking pan, on a cooking sheet. So again, I'm going to take a few of these, spoon a little mixture in there, and roll it up. And you could vary the mixture when you make these eggplant rotatini or eggplant roll-ups. A lot of times I like to put a lot of mushroom, garlic, and onion in there. And this one, so I can change the recipe around a little bit. Experiment, see what you like. You can even make it spicy. You can put a little chili pepper in. Or, vary the flavoring. Use a flavoring. I'll add tomato zest, pepper, Mrs. Dash, cumin, all types of different flavorings in there to change it up. And now, of course, once I've rolled it up like this, I'm going to put a little bit of more tomato sauce right on the top and put it back in the oven to bake for another 10 minutes. Because my oven's preheated. I didn't shut the oven off. So obviously, if I was really making this for my family or for people coming over, I'd probably fill the whole pan up with a huge amount of them because people love this. But I'm just going to cook these 4, put it back in the oven to cook for another 10 or 15 minutes. Take a look. Isn't that beautiful? You've got to taste these things. They're fantastic. And you know what? We save them in the refrigerator for days. And I eat them cold, eat them reheated, put them in a pita bread, like a pocket pita. It's a great, delicious dish for you to eat all week long. Want to learn how to make a great burger? What American is apple pie? How can we live without a burger, right? Well, how about a sunny bean burger that marries together all these healthy foods like seeds and beans and onions in a delicious dish? Well, here's a great way I like to do it. And here I'm going to put sunflower seeds, onions, and I'm using canned red kidney beans. And you could cook beans in advance to make soft beans for the burgers, but you want your beans soft so you can knead them together with the other ingredients. And you don't have to use these exact ingredients. You can use any nut or seed, walnuts, almonds, cashews, different types. You can vary it around. But in this case, I'm going to take these chopped sunflower seeds. So I'm taking a 1/4 cup of sunflower seeds that I chopped up. We chopped them with a knife here, but you could chop them up in a food processor or even in a blender or one of those mechanical choppers. And I'll have my chopped sunflower seeds in there. I have my chopped onions I'm putting in. At least in this case, I'm putting in a 1.5 cups, 2 cups of, this is just a cup, excuse me, 1 cup of chopped onions. I'm just making a small amount for this sample. And I'm usually going to take my beans, too, and chop them in some way. And we could put them in a food processor. But right now, I don't have a food processor, so I'm going to use the back of a wooden spoon and just flatten my beans down to get them nice and soft. See how easy that was? So they're flattened down. Mix them in there now. And I can put into the mix now some oats. Here I'm using a little oatmeal. I'm going to put in 3 tablespoons of oatmeal. A couple of 1/4 teaspoon of chili peppers. Oops. A little too much there. Okay, we'll have a little hotter burger today. Okay, and a little bit of unsalted ketchup. Putting a couple tablespoons of unsalted ketchup right into the burger. Now I'm going to mix it up. Now I'm going to take these burgers when they're mixed up. I'm going to form them into burgers into nice patties with my hands. But once these burgers are mixed up and cooked, obviously, then you can put them on maybe a whole wheat pita, maybe a half of a whole grain or a multi-grain burger bun with some sliced raw onion, a little bit of lettuce, sliver of avocado, a little bit of more of that unsalted ketchup. You can make a great tasting burger. They're great for kids' lunches too. Okay. And you can even put a little nut butter in there. You can make all different types of burgers. In this case, I'm going to take the burger, put it into my pan. And if you notice, I'm using the beans with the liquid that came in with the beans are all in there. Makes the burgers nice and moist. And you want the beans pretty crushed up, pretty much crushed. But you don't have to be so particular, so careful how you form the burgers right now. Make the patties extra thick, because what's going to happen is once they cook a little bit, I'm going to cook them for about 20 minutes. Then when I pull them out, they'll be half cooked, and they'll stick together even better, and I'm going to reform them into patties again. So let me just rinse off my hands. Put these burgers in the oven to cook at 350. Okay, I let the burgers cook for about 15 minutes. They've come out pretty hard now. And I'm going to take the burger now, a little hot. Let them cool off a little bit. Then we're going to take the burger and I'm going to reform them into a patty, because now when they're going to out there heated up, they're going to stick together better, and I can shape them so they'll stay. Even whether you eat them or in the refrigerator, once we reform them, they'll hold that shape better the next time they're cooked. So everything's softening up. They're not going to crumble and fall apart once I cook them the second time. And now I'm going to recook them for another 15 minutes. And of course, I can flip them over at this time too. So I reform my burgers, ready to go, put them back in the oven again. We take them out. You can eat some of them now, make a lot of extra, save them cold in the refrigerator. You can reheat them in the microwave, cook them in a toaster oven, use them for lunches. Make extra because they're a great way to get your beans into you. Let's make some delicious desserts. That's the fun part, right? Great to top your day off or the dinner off with a nice dessert, because that ends the eating for the day. You clean the kitchen, you clean your teeth, you get away from the kitchen, and you're done, right? So it's a great idea to have something really delicious and sweet. So let me make a few ice creams for you, a vanilla and then a chocolate one. And we'll make them healthy so you can eat it and enjoy it emotionally as you're eating it, because you know you're doing something good for your body, not bad. Here I'm going to make a banana ice cream, which I call my vanilla nice cream. Got that? Vanilla nice cream. Here's how I do it. I take bananas that I've peeled and put in the freezer overnight. You have to freeze them at least 8 hours so they're hard. And here's 2 bananas. I'm going to take those bananas and I'm going to cut them into pieces. These are frozen bananas. They've already been frozen. That's how we make the ice cream. And I'm going to throw them in my high-powered blender. Okay, here we go. I'm going to put in, and obviously you can make it bigger quantities, using 4 bananas and double the amount. So I'm going to put in a 1/4 tablespoon of coconut cream. No ingredients except plain coconut made into a cream. You can buy that in health food stores, coconut cream, to give it that creamy mouthfeel. Basically, if you just take fruit and frozen fruit and whip it up, it tastes more like an ices, and you could sweeten it with some type of dried fruit or flavor like that. But when you add the nuts or seeds in with the frozen fruit, then you get that incredible, richness and creaminess. So it really does taste like ice cream. I'm going to put the 10 walnut halves in, and if I was using 4 bananas, I'd use 20 walnut halves. In this case, I'm going to make like a soft smoothie ice cream. I'm going to put a little bit of water in, just maybe a quarter cup of water, and going to put in a teaspoon, about a teaspoon of vanilla. That's it. Done. Blend it up. Start it on low first. I wish you could be here to taste this, but since you're not, I'm going to enjoy myself, if you don't mind. Wow. That is some good vanilla ice cream. Gotta taste this stuff. All right, rather than stay here and watch me eat, let's move on to a great chocolate ice cream. How about a chocolate cherry ice cream? All right, let's move on to my chocolate ice cream. Actually, a chocolate cherry ice cream. It's really fantastic. We start, of course, with the base as the frozen cherries. And you can buy frozen pitted cherries in health food stores, supermarkets. So I'm going to take the frozen cherries, of course, put a whole bag of frozen cherries into the Vitamix or into the heavy-duty blender. And there's two types of dates you can use to sweeten the ice creams. These are Diglett Nord dates, and these are medjool dates. In this case, you can use either one. I just pitted a handful of these medjool dates. They're the bigger dates. They're a little sweeter, a little softer, and they're really nice for making ice creams and desserts. So I'm going to put 5 of those in there. A half a cup of the hemp or soy milk. In this case, I'm using the almond hemp milk that we made earlier today, just by mixing in hemp seeds, almonds with a date and some vanilla in the machine and creaming it down to a homemade milk. So I'm going to add a half a cup of the milk in there to give it that creamy mouthfeel. And there's a little vanilla this is hemp almond milk. There's a little vanilla in there already. So there's a little bit of vanilla in this dish. And then I'm going to add a heaping tablespoons of a nice cocoa powder. No unsweetened cocoa powder, a heaping tablespoon of that. And that's it. Easy as pie. Put it in there, cream it up. My plunger. Okay. My cherry ice cream, chocolate cherry ice cream is done. Put some in a bowl. And you can take these ice creams and you can actually save them by freezing them in those Tupperware pops in your freezer and eat them afterwards like fudgesicles. If I'm going to make them into a fudgesicle, I'll usually add some raw cashews into the recipe, because when you add a little bit of raw cashew, it keeps it a little more fudgy and chewy when it's frozen. So just add a few, and you can save any ice cream as a fudgesicle pop. Okay, there it is. Sorry, guys, that you can't taste it with me, but you can make it at home. Try this next week by yourself. Delicious chocolate ice cream. Wow, that is good. I have to show you how to make some great pies too, right? We can't end without doing that. And here I'm going to make you a berry pie. I call it a very, very good pie. It's actually a raw pie. We don't even have to cook it. So let me show you some ways to make a crust. There's a real simple crust to making this pie. I'm just going to take, of course, some dates. And here I have some dates that I mushed together into a date ball. These are actually medjool dates. I'm going to put them in my bowl. I'm going to take some almonds and some unsweetened shredded coconut. So I'm going to pour the unsweetened shredded coconut right in with the date, mash it in there together. I'm going to throw a couple of tablespoons of oats in there with it. And you can actually crush the oats in the blender and make them more into a little bit of a flour. I think I'm going to make the oats a little smoother, just a little bit. So I'm going to put them in the Vitamix. Turn it on just for a second. There we go. That's done. Dump them in there to make that pie crust. And now I'm going to take the oats, take about a cup of walnuts. I'm sorry, a cup of almonds. Those were almonds, and putting them in the Vitamix. Noisy. See how fast the machine ground those almonds to a dust or an almond flour. Put it right in there. My pie crust is almost done. All I have to do is knead it together. I could add a little bit of water if I need to, and I think I'm going to need to add a little bit because of the addition of the oat flour. I'm going to have to add a little bit of water into this. I'm just going to a few tablespoons of water in that to make it stick together better. So this is probably the healthiest pie crust you've ever seen. Nothing has any sugar in it. It's all sweetened with some type. All the desserts are sweetened with either fresh fruit, frozen fruit, or some type of dried fruit. So here's my kneaded ball of crust. I'm all set now to spread that out into my glass pie plate. I'm going to press that down till it lines the bottom nicely, make it nice and thin across the bottom and the sides of that plate. Actually, this one I did earlier. See how I spread it out over that plate nice and thin so it covers the whole pie plate? This one's going to be good too. And then I peeled a banana. I actually have a banana and a half here that I peeled. And I'm going to slice that banana on an angle, thin, to make banana like these little banana medallions that I'm going to spread around the bottom of the pie. Then I'm going to take some lemon, and that's almost done. Take some fresh lemon and squeeze that on top of the banana. Great. Now I'm going to layer some blueberries and strawberries on top too. So now the blueberry layer goes on top of the banana. And even just a thin one layer of blueberries on top of that pie. And then I'm going to take strawberries. Let me show you how I cut. In this case, I'm going to use fresh strawberries. So I take my washed fresh strawberries, pull the stem off, and cut the strawberry in half right next to where the stem was. So this half has the stem in it, and this half doesn't. So this one I can cut just straight in the middle, straight down, and make it into two flat pieces. And this one I'll remove the stem piece. Remove that stem piece, and then I'll cut it in half. So one part, I have to remove the stem. So each strawberry goes into 4 pieces. Here's the piece without the, so here's the piece has the stem removed already. I'm going to cut that. And here's a piece, another one. I'm going to prep another strawberry just to show you. Pull the stem out, cut it near the stem, and then cut the stem all out. And then this one I'm going to cut down the middle in half, and this one I'm going to cut in half too. And we're all set to put these strawberries around the pie. These are already taken out of the stems and removed from the strawberry. So I'll just cut these in half to finish up that pie. So a layer of banana with lemon, a layer of blueberries, a layer of thin layer of strawberries on top. And now I'm going to mix in some kiwi. And I'm going to take kiwis that are just slightly soft to the touch. Sometimes kiwis take a long time to ripen, so you got to buy them hard. And then when I cut the kiwi in half, when I cut it in half a second time, don't cut it straight through the stem of the kiwi. Angle it a little bit, so you're not cutting on the stem, because it's too hard to cut through that hard part. Angle it slightly, so you're angling the knife, not cutting through the either top. Then it'll scoop out easier. See, it'll scoop out easier because you didn't cut it right through the stem. So I'm going to take this kiwi now and scoop them out of the skins. The key here to make the key is to get the kiwi just at the perfect degree of ripeness, not too obviously hard and not too soft, just so it has a little bit of give. Sometimes I've kept kiwis in the house for 2 weeks to get them in the perfect stage of ripeness. Okay, now that I have my kiwi removed from the skin and quartered, I'm going to cut all of these quarters in half. And lay them around the pie as well. Now I'm going to make a nice sauce, a strawberry sauce for the top. I can take the remains of the strawberries I have, or I can use frozen strawberries. If you can't, strawberries are a food you really want to try to go organic, because they treat the non-organic fresh strawberries with a fungicide, so they have a longer shelf life. And they're expensive to buy organic. But the frozen strawberries, you don't have to get organic because they don't treat them with a fungicide, because they stay fresh because they're frozen. So if you can't get organic strawberries, they're too expensive, and I don't buy them when they're so expensive either. I'll just buy frozen strawberries. I'll make the sauce or make the dish with frozen strawberries. And frozen fruit and frozen vegetables, still very high in nutrients and very healthy. So here I'm going to make a nice sauce for the top. And right now I'm going to take a handful of frozen strawberries in there. And I'm going to use a handful of fresh too, because my frozen ones just come out of the freezer and they're hard as a rock. They'll blend better if I mix a little fresh in. I'm going to put a little squeeze of lemon in there. Love the little taste of lemon with sweet. And of course, some of those dates mixed into, a few dates. And a half a cup of our almond hemp milk, or in this case, you can put soy milk, whatever you have on hand. And ready to go for the sauce going on top of the raw pie. We'll blend that up for a minute. All right, I'm going to pour this right over the pie like an icing. And then we're going to take it . This is going to be some incredible pie. There we go. Okay. There we have it. Now I'm going to take this and put it in the freezer for 2 hours so it gels. You take it out of the freezer, try to remove it from the freezer at least a half an hour before you want to eat it so it all gels together. So you don't have to cook it. The freezing makes it gel just like you're cooking it. And you remove it from the freezer right before you eat it. So let's put it in the freezer and we'll be all set to go. You got to come over my house and have some of these fantastic desserts. We're going to have we can have tremendous, great tasting parties, but you know, seriously though, you can make food taste fantastic. You can make healthy eating and have the immunity solution be not just the way you're going to live your life in great health and with safety and less fear of disease, but you're going to have fun, you're going to have great taste, you're going to have exciting food that tastes just as that, you know, and actually your taste buds are going to improve. You're going to adapt to the foods you eat, you're going to enjoy eating these healthy recipes and enjoy food even more than your diet style you're eating right now. Because now you're eating a diet style where everything is overly seasoned, overly salted, overly sweetened. Those excessive salt and sweetenings deadens your taste buds. When you get in great health, when your body gets healthy, your taste improves, your smell improves, your sight improves. And when you marry that together with the emotional and intellectual satisfaction you're going to have from knowing you're eating foods that are good for the inside of your body as you enjoy their flavor, you're going to enjoy eating more than ever before. So from my family to yours, wishing you great health and a wonderful year of pleasure and great healthy eating.